handsome. Rocky. I am feeling so many things because of how long it took me to set this up. We're here now. We're here. We are present. We are ready. And I'm going to talk about one of my favorite things, which is self-help books. Grab your water, light your candles, grab your notes, your phone, whatever you do to keep track of these things when you watch these videos. And let's just jump into it. So, some of these are your very typical self-help books, probably the most popular ones you've heard about when learning, researching, looking up self-help books, or when you're perusing Barnes & Noble or your local bookstore and you see the titles, you're like, I've seen this 400,000 times, maybe I should buy it, is it any good? What if it's everything I know? What if I don't get anything out of it and it's stupid? I'm here for you. Let us begin. Number 1. The cover looks so bad. I'm so sorry. Don't put your paperback books, especially on your windowsill with plants on them, just for the aesthetic. This is what happens. Anyway, You Are a Badass: How to Stop Doubting Your Greatness and Start Living an Awesome Life by Jen Sincero. I read this book about 1.5 years ago, I want to say, and it was one of the first books I ever picked up on the nonfiction self-help journey style. And let me tell you, it is probably the basic. So if you're starting your journey, if you're starting your spiritual awakening, if it's the new year, new me moment for you, I would start here. There are a lot of basic ideas in this book that are covered in a lot of the other books. I would say it's almost like a bullet point of what a lot of the other books expand on. There's the main theme of the key to being a badass is loving yourself. I'm not gonna say it's all the same thing. I'm not gonna. Jen Sincero's style of writing is it's kind of like you're just talking to a really close friend who also happens to be a life coach. I think one of the best things that stuck with me about this book that I hadn't heard really before reading it was her money mindset. Girl. She has some good writing prompts, good advice, meditation. If you're new to the journey, if you're just starting, do it. Next, sip sip. This is a double banger. We are double fisting this one. I know you've probably heard of this. The Secret, The Power. The Secret and The Power by Rhonda Burns. I know it's a documentary. I don't know if it's on Netflix or where you can find it. I haven't watched it. I was really interested in learning about the law of attraction, and boy did I. This is your basic baby starter book for law of attraction. It's a very spiritual book in that way in terms of self-help. It does sort of give a how-to with the law of attraction. It quotes scientists, it quotes the Bible, it quotes Buddha. It's very spiritual, which I personally like. And if you're more on the spiritual awakening side of self-help, I would definitely check it out. It has all these things like the secret to health, the secret to money, the secret to relationships, the secret to losing weight. She really goes in depth to the process of visualization. She goes really in depth with the process of visualization, which I think is absolutely key. So if you're into it, cool. If you don't believe in it, also cool. It's not difficult to consume. It's not too heady, which I think these things often can be. It's very to the point. But her sister, The Power, The Power is love. That's what the book is about. The Secret is the law of attraction. The Power is love. And this just really didn't do it for me. I mean, it hit on the same things that The Secret did for me. I don't even remember things from it. I'm saying this is a really great thing to have. This, you know? Next, moving on from some of the spirituality stuff. Boom. Atomic Habits by James Clear. Tiny changes, remarkable results. I read this early 2020. I guess as someone who had already read a lot on habit making, on changes, watched all the YouTube videos of 10 habits you need to build and stuff like that, it wasn't mind-blowing to me. It was very much like, oh yeah, I remember this, huh. He talks about a lot of experiments. He talks about his own personal journey and in losing weight, not smoking cigarettes, building up better habits like playing guitar, things like that. And I think that's really helpful. If you're someone who is actively trying to break a habit, maybe it would be more useful for you. I guess because I wasn't trying to break a habit or form a habit, it didn't really What I do like about this book, format-wise, is it's very much like, here's how to do it, here's a box that explains it so you don't forget, and here are the key points. A table. The laws of how to create a good habit and how to break a bad habit, period. Get it if you're working on habits. If you're not, The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck by Mark Manson. I'm sure you've seen this famous orange cover. Oh, there she goes. There she goes. Bye. I first listened to this, I want to say 2 years ago, maybe 2.5 years ago, via audiobook, and it didn't really stick with me at the time as much as it did when I reread it this past summer. If you love a good personal, satirical, funny, blunt, to the point writing, this is your guy. I think I laughed out loud while reading this multiple times. He has a lot of narrative, he has a lot of tips. I think Manson's point is like, we really make our life harder on ourselves than we have to. We cause our own suffering so much of the time. He even references the story of Buddha, talks about how happiness is a problem, how toxic positivity is a problem. He touches on failure and success, defining yourself and not defining yourself. One of the quotes that I like from this book, on page 148, the chapter Failure is the Way Forward. He says, anxiety and sadness are not necessarily always undesirable or unhelpful states of mind. Rather, they are often representative of the necessary pain of psychological growth. And to deny that pain is to deny our potential. You can't necessarily control your emotions, but you can control your reactions to your emotions. Recommend. Not overhyped. Thank you. Womp 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 womp. Grit. The Power of Passion and Perseverance by Angela Duckworth. I've been dating this book for a long time. We met way back in, I believe, 10th grade honors English. He talked about Angela Duckworth, we watched the TED Talks, all of these things, and now here I am. This is the first that I've recommended that is very science-based, very Malcolm Gladwell-esque, very much so. Angela Duckworth is a psychologist, and that to me makes these types of things so much more interesting to read about. To me, this book came at a time in my life in terms of like career uncertainty, in terms of passion fading, going and fading, being post-grad and not knowing what I'm actually gonna do. And if you're a person that is struggling to commit to a career field, don't know what you're passionate about, don't know how to find your passion, if your passions seem to come and go, read it. One of the biggest lessons I've learned from this book was that passion is not taught, it's chosen, it's learned. You can be passionate about anything you're doing. She talks about how grit can grow if you're born with grit, all of those sorts of things, and has so many concrete examples to back her studies, so many stories that I haven't heard that it almost feels fiction sometimes. One of my favorite quotes that comes from this book is actually a quote from Henry Ford that Duckworth uses to back some of her statements, and it says, whether you think you can or you can't, you're right. Come on, manifestation, come on, abundance, come on, attraction, come on. I'd read it, definitely. I'd go for it. Why not? Oh, my camera's gonna die. So I just apologize if the camera moved, if I look different, if the lighting's probably different, the sun went down. Anyway, Outliers by Malcolm Gladwell. I love this book. So I don't know that we would call this a self-help book, but it definitely did self-help me. It helped myself. I was helped in the self by this book because it tells the story about the outliers, the most successful people in their fields, the 0.1% of people that succeed at certain things, but it explains it. It doesn't just tell you their story, it explains the patterns in life that led to those events. He talks about the Beatles, he talks about Steve Jobs, he talks about professional athletes, and more. Like I was saying, it's simultaneously encouraging and discouraging. It reminds me a lot of what Gary Vee talks about. Gary Vee, this business mogul, he's big on Instagram and YouTube, I think, as well. He talks about how getting really successful at something, like being an outlier at something, sometimes really just requires you to align your talents and your passions. And if you can align your talent and your passion, you're gonna work really, really hard at something you're naturally good at and will probably excel above the rest at. It makes you realize that there is a pattern to this life and there's probably a pattern to yours. One of my favorite quotes from this book is, who we are cannot be separated from where we're from. You are in charge of your story, baby. Gladwell defines outliers as those who have been given opportunities and have had the strength and presence of mind to seize them. Next. All right, my second to last book. This is The Defining Decade, Why Your 20s Matter and How to Make the Most of Them Now by Meg Jay. Girl, get it. Here's why. This book is from a therapist's perspective. She tells the stories about the most common struggles for her clients, patients that are in their 20s. It's like talking to your mom and getting one of those lectures and being like, I don't want to hear it, but it's from a third party, so you're like kind of being attacked, but also realizing you're not completely alone in these struggles because obviously so many other people have had them. If you're one of those people like me every other day who is wondering what to do with your life, not knowing where to go, not knowing, should I move out? Should I be saving money? Should I be pursuing what I got my degree in? Should I stay in this relationship? Do I go travel? Like, this book answers those questions. And though I don't agree with 100% of the things that she says, this book answers them like in such a logical way. It's very realistic, which sometimes like breaks my poor little artsy romantic heart. Though we should live presently every day and live for today. If we are planning for the future, why am I not doing things now that will build my self-equity for the future? You know what I mean? She talks about setting up your life in your 20s for your future. Thank you. Next. I'm now on my last book. Well, this next book is called A New Earth. I don't physically have this book with me because I've had 2 or 3 copies of this book, and each time I reread it and I get so invested, and then I tell someone about it and then they want to read it and then I give it to them. And then it's gone into the ether, never to be seen again. And I've yet to repurchase it since. This book is my holy grail of mindset. Like, she's a thick read, I will say. She definitely requires some sort of attention. It's not like personable, relatable like some of the other books I've said. It doesn't have all the science experiments in it like some of the other books said. It's very, very, very spiritual, which is awesome, but also makes it for like a heady thing. You're like, wait, what? This book is about mindfulness. It's about shedding ego. It's about detaching from I. It's about looking inward. It's about developing empathy. It's about religion. It's about how all religions are saying the same thing, but humans are the ones that bring us to fight each other because of ego. It's about getting rid of ego and realizing we are part of something so much bigger. It's exhausting. I really, really think this is one of the things that changed my way of thinking. As someone who's struggled with depression and anxiety for a long time, like, he talks about noticing thoughts, very big, like, meditative point of view, trigger warning, suicide. He said what cured him of that was realizing that he is not his thoughts. And this concept really changed the game for me. Yes, we have thoughts, but you are not your thoughts. You are the observer of your thoughts. And this is not a new concept, but how he phrased it really helped me. It literally got to the point where I would start thinking like the things that come and like trouble me often about death or being a bad, like all these crazy like negative thoughts, and I see them and then I laugh because I'm like, why am I even thinking about that right now? And then you get back to what you're doing. It's like once you are aware of your ego and you actually conceptually understand it, it's up to you to take that practice forward. I love this book so much. I used to take pictures of it all the time. This is a quote that I had a picture of that I wrote down. It says, "Give up defining yourself, to yourself or to others. You won't die. You will come to life. And don't be concerned with how others define you. When they define you, they are limiting themselves. So it's their problem." He also quotes Shakespeare, saying, "There's nothing either good or bad, but thinking makes it so." Ugh, I love that. Get this book if you want to be changed. Again, it's a thick read. She's a little heavy, but she's absolutely worth it. Should I change the lights to a signal that we're moving on? Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you learned something new. I hope you heard of a new title. And if you have any recommendations, leave them below. If you have read any of these and want to talk about them, go ahead. Amazing, incredible. Woo. You are exactly where you need to be, baby. And yeah. Thanks for watching.